I'm going to show you how to build Ratchet and Clank in Dungeons & Dragons as a playable character, all thanks to this comment. And yes, I'm going to treat this as one playable character that you can still somehow manage to use both Ratchet and Clank. First things first, we got to pick a race, and we are going to be starting with Ratchet. He is technically a Lombax, and that apparently was going to be something a little closer to reptilian when they were in development, but they decided with going something a bit more cat-like, so that's what we're going to do as well, by going with the Tabaxi. Tabaxis get some feline agility, really upping their movement speed whenever they really need it. They can use their claws if they really need to, and they get some dark vision. But when it comes to skills, they get cat's talent, so they have proficiency in perception and stealth. Then when it comes to a background, we're going to go with Wild Spacer because you are kind of traveling through outer space plenty. I know I've been using this background a lot, but it's kind of hard to avoid because it also comes with a feat, and that feat is Tough, giving us an extra 2 hit points of health per level of this overall build. It also gives us proficiency in athletics and survival. Then when it comes to some starting stats, we're going to have a point spread that looks like this. We hop around a lot, so we're going to have some good dexterity. We need some constitution just for some health, and we need intelligence because we work with a lot of high-tech stuff. And before we dive into a starting class, I want to just call out that if you like D&D related content, you like these videos or anything like that, hit subscribe. It really helps this channel to an absolutely insane degree, and it helps the algorithm know that you like this type of content, and I really appreciate it. Not to mention, it apparently makes it so you roll more nat 20s than if you are not subscribed. But let's get back to the build. For our class that we're going to be starting with, which is an artificer. When you become an artificer, you get proficiency in 2 skills. So we're going to grab Arcana and Investigation, which really rely on that high intelligence that we have. We get proficiency in light armor, medium armor, and shields, as well as all simple weapons. We're not going to focus too heavily on the weapon that we're going to use for right now because you do smack with a wrench, but we'll figure out how to replicate that once we get a subclass, because that's pretty much the time that this entire build really kicks off. Also, when you become an artificer, you get proficiency in firearms. So we're going to make sure that we load out Ratchet with every possible firearm we can find. And I mean every possible weapon. We need everything from muskets to boomerangs to antimatter rifles, and all of those do exist in D&D Beyond, so I'll make sure they're all equipped on the character sheet. When you become an artificer, you get magical tinkering, allowing you to make some small magical high technology objects, and you get some spell casting. I'm going to save most spells for the character sheet up on Patreon, but I want to grab a few basics because if you want to blast at somebody, we want Firebolt. If you want to hit somebody a little harder with your wrench, we want Booming Blade. It's kind of necessary to just have Cure Wounds in your back pocket for a bit of healing, and then Shield for a bit more defensive ability. Then at second level of Artificer, we get Infuse Item, allowing us to enchant our items in various ways or create entirely new ones. But for now, we're going to boost up our defense a little bit with the Infusion Enhanced Defense, giving us a +1 to our armor class, but that also goes up once we hit a certain level in Artificer, boosting up to a +2. Then because firearms, which we are going to be relying on a lot, require a loading property and dealing with a lot of pain regarding how you need to only fire once per turn and all this stuff, the other infusion we're going to take is Repeating Shot. This allows us to ignore loading properties for any weapon that would require loading, like crossbows and firearms. This also grants us a +1 to the weapon, making it magical and enhancing our damage and accuracy. Now we can learn a couple more infusions, but we can only equip 2 at a time. So the other few that I might have in my back pocket, just in case you ever need it, is to recreate a Bag of Holding, because dealing with inventory is a pain in the butt, and we're going to take Enhanced Weapon so that we can give a +1 to a normal type of weapon, but that does also increase to a +2 once you hit a higher level in Artificer. Then at third level of Artificer, you get an Artificer Specialist, which is your Artificer subclass, and we want to make sure we get Clank. So we're going to take Battlesmith. This gives us a whole host of spells that are automatically on our spell list and prepared. So now we don't have to worry about learning Shield because it's automatically granted to us by being the subclass. We also get the spell Heroism, and later we'll get some additional healing, shielding, and smiting. But when you get this subclass, you get the feature Battle Ready. So you gain proficiency with martial weapons. This feature also grants the specialized ability that if you're attacking with a magic weapon, you can use your intelligence modifier for the attack. So now firing our firearm won't rely on our dexterity. We can just focus more on our intelligence to start. And if we wind up enchanting our wrench that we use to smack people pretty often, we can use intelligence for that as well. And since we have proficiency in martial weapons, I would go ahead and turn my wrench into a war hammer, because war hammers do bludgeoning damage and they're probably going to be the most suitable replacement for a wrench, especially since a Lombax is a smaller creature and Tabaxis can be small. So if you want to stay true to character and play a small creature, dealing with anything that is larger than a normal sized weapon like a maul, which is a heavy weapon, would force you to be fighting at disadvantage, and we don't want to deal with that. Also, when you take this subclass, you get a Steel Defender, which we're going to be treating as Clank. The Steel Defender is pretty special. It allows you to use the Mending cantrip, which we'll make sure to add to our spell list, healing it for 2d6 hit points. And it's got its own massive stat block that does all sorts of cool stuff. Your Steel Defender takes the same turn as you in combat, but acts immediately after you're done with your stuff, and it can move and take reactions on its own, but it's not going to do anything other than dodge unless you use your bonus action to command it to do something else. It is a medium construct with 15 armor class, a number of hit points equal to 2 plus your intelligence modifier, plus 5 times your artificer level. It's immune to things like poison. It can't be charmed or surprised. It has a special reaction called deflect attack, allowing it to impose disadvantage on an attack that is being done within 5 feet of it. And you can use that bonus action to command it to do one of 2 actions. The first one is repair, which it can do 3 times per day, restoring 2d8 plus your proficiency bonus and hit points. But it can do it to itself or another construct within 5 feet of it. The other action it can do is a force empowered rend, dealing 1d8 plus your proficiency bonus as force damage. And it uses your melee spell attack modifier for the attack rolls. But more notably, if we're playing as a small creature, this is a medium construct. So if you really wanted to ride it, you can. But that's only if Clank is cool with you riding on his shoulders. There's one more feature we get at 3rd level of Artificer, which is right tool for the job. So you have any tool handy that you really need. But that's just kind of a default ability of being an Artificer and has nothing to do with your subclass. Then at 4th level of Artificer, you get an ability score improvement. So we're going to focus on our intelligence because that helps more things than anything else being an Artificer, and especially a Battlesmith. Then at 5th level of Artificer, thanks to being a Battlesmith, we get extra attack. And we also get access to 2nd level spells. There's a few that fit unreasonably well to the character that I just can't avoid, like Pyrotechnics, because it's all flashy and just kind of fits the name. And then I gotta grab Heat Metal just because it's an insanely helpful spell to have in your arsenal. It allows you to heat up any metal that is on an enemy, and they have to make a saving throw just to be able to still hold on to it if it's something they're holding. But if it's something that they're wearing, like a suit of armor, they can't drop that. So they just keep taking damage, and it forces them to have disadvantage on all of their attack rolls. Then at 6th level of Artificer, you get Tool Expertise, allowing you to have expertise when using a tool, doubling your proficiency bonus. You also get to learn a few more infusions here. And here is where I'm going to throw most of it up on the character sheet on Patreon, because there's so many great choices that it's kind of hard to dictate. But you can generally help your blasting with firearms by having like bracers of archery, because that improves your accuracy. You can have fun stuff like a ring of water walking if you want it. There's cloaks of protection, belts of hill giant strength, horns of blasting, or even an enhanced arcane focus, which I do highly recommend that one, because your spell attack modifier is going to be affecting everything with your construct. So having a +1 bonus to your spell attack rolls that upgrades to a +2 at 10th level is just insanely helpful to have. Then at 7th level of Artificer, you get Flash of Genius, allowing you to add your intelligence modifier to any saving throw that you or somebody within 30 feet of you makes. But you can only use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier per long rest. Then at 8th level of Artificer, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to go ahead and max out that intelligence. And then at 9th level of Artificer, you get access to 3rd level spells. So make sure to have a few things like Fly or Haste, because that's generally pretty helpful for having things like a jetpack or attacking a bit quicker. And if you want something to help out Clank or have a different version of Clank, you can have Tiny Servant, even though it might be a little disrespectful to call Clank a servant. Also at 9th level of Artificer, you get another feature from being a Battlesmith, called Arcane Jolt. So once per turn, when either you or your steel defender hits an enemy, you can channel some magical energy through it, dealing an extra 2d6 force damage. Or you can decide to heal an ally instead, healing somebody within 30 feet of the creature that you hit for 2d6 hit points. You can only use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. Then at 10th level of Artificer, you get Magic Item Adept. So now you can attune to more magic items than any other characters in D&D, allowing you to attune to up to 4 magic items. You can craft slightly more rare items when you're dealing with your infusions, and it takes you less gold and time to do so. Then at 11th level of Artificer, you get a spell storing item, taking a random item and forcing it to hold on to a first or second level spell that requires an action to cast. And then any creature can use that spell. But if it does require concentration, that creature using the item has to do the concentrating. But that spell can be used a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier times 2. Then at 12th level of Artificer, you get another ability score improvement. And I was very tempted to take the feat Mounted Combatant, but that's only if you really want to ride on Clank's back. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and boost up our Constitution, because that's going to help our health and our concentration checks, and we don't need our dexterity quite as much because we can use our intelligence for so many things. Then at 13th level of Artificer, we get access to 4th level spells. So you definitely want things like Summon Construct ready to go, or things like Fabricate to help build more stuff. But you do also get Fire Shield by default thanks to being a Battlesmith. Then at 14th level of Artificer, you get Magic Item Savant. So now you can attune to up to 5 magic items, while anybody that's not an Artificer is stuck with just 3, and you can ignore all the requirements around an item when it comes to things like class or race or level, which really opens up a lot of possibilities. Then at 15th level of Artificer, you get another feature from being a Battlesmith called Improved Defender. So that Arcane Jolt feature you get, allowing you to add some force damage or some healing when you hit somebody, yeah, now that's upgraded to 4d6 instead of 2d6. Your Steel Defender gets a +2 to their armor class, and if your Steel Defender uses their deflect attack reaction, they get to deal 1d4 plus your intelligence modifier to the attacker, which overall is just a pretty solid upgrade. Then at 16th level of Artificer, you get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up that Constitution again. Then at 17th level of Artificer, you get access to 5th level spells. You can grab a better smite like Banishing Smite, but I really want to make sure you have some way to get around the universe. So I'm going to grab the spell, Create Spelljamming Helm. This is from the Spelljammer book, and it literally creates a chair that allows you to fly around the universe at insane speeds. Then at 18th level of Artificer, you get Magic Item Master. So now you can attune to up to 6 magic items, literally twice as much as anybody else that's not an Artificer. Then at 19th level of Artificer, you get another ability score improvement. So since nothing else is really going to help us all that much, let's just boost up our dexterity. There's not a ton of feats that we really want at this point, and it never hurts to have a bit more dex. Then at 20th level of Artificer and max level of this overall build, you get Soul of Artifice, allowing you to get a +1 bonus to every saving throw that you have to make for each magical item that you are attuned to. So that means you can have a +6 to all of your saving throws. And if you're reduced to 0 hit points, but not killed outright, you can actually end one of your Artificer infusions to drop to 1 hit point instead, really saving you in a dire situation. If there's anything you do differently with this build, let me know in the comments down below. But if you enjoyed this build and you want access to the character sheet, including all the spells and infusions that I didn't explicitly talk about here, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, where I have access to the character sheets for all of my builds for literally every video that I've made. And you can really help support this channel, just like some of these amazing people that are scrolling on by, or some of the especially awesome patrons: Rave Lord, Nicole Piliak, Alone, The Holy 999s, Christopher Sams, Dark of Skies, Barrow Scrool, Zach, Felix Ulick, The 10586, Kevin Shirley, Zephyros, That Funny Man 57, Joshua Maynard, CGC 2014, Panda Milkshake, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Karkat Kitsune, Decker Joint, Z13, Viral Nerevar, Daniel Galvin, The Dino 21, and Salvador. Then there's the Dungeon Master level patrons I play D&D with: T Brownie, Julia B. De Oliveira, Just Wolf, Shane Gilroy, Daniel Saffler, and Conman ZX. Then going above and beyond anything I ever expected is my God tier level patron, GameSteak. So a very special thank you to him. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button. especially if you want to have an absolutely insane arsenal of firearms and whatever else by playing a very high-tech type of character in a more fantasy world by playing as Ratchet and Clank in Dungeons and Dragons.